Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Ruffman. I am your host, John Ruffman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. I am not a fool, and the American people are not going to be fooled by what is going on right now in terms of American national security. Yesterday, when we concluded this podcast, I sat and watched the leaders of American intelligence make fools of themselves in front of the Senate Committee on Intelligence. More than that, I saw Democrats trying very hard to find out the truth, and Republicans obfuscating, shifting subjects, trying to talk about anything but what has happened. A security breach in this country of profound importance. But wait. It's not the security glitch that took place that bothers me. It's not the ad hominem attacks on Jeffrey Goldberg. It's not the denial that there was any national security involved. No. What bothers me more than anything else is an attempt to cover up what happened. That's the problem. And yes, this goes right to the President of the United States, who is responsible, ultimately, for everything that happens. Do you understand that now, as more and more information comes out, that we now understand fully that this was a tremendous national security breach, that there were highly confidential, indeed national security issues at stake? And what happened? Well, there was a breach. And it's not Jeffrey Goldberg's fault. The fact that they're attacking Jeffrey Goldberg is, to me, a disgrace. Jeffrey Goldberg happened to be included because of Pete Hegseth, apparently, including him in a conversation. And what happened then was that, in fact, Jeffrey Goldberg did the right thing. At some point, he disconnected from the talk. And more than that, all he did was reveal the fact that there was a breach. He didn't reveal the confidential information. But now the information is coming out. Now we see the timeline, and we're going to see more and more. And even as I record this particular podcast, we know that the gentlemen involved and the ladies involved are going to be called before the House Intelligence Committee, and they'll be asked questions there. I have never seen such incompetence. And the only example I can give you that sets some sort of historical precedent was the reaction after the Bay of Pigs invasion, theoretical invasion of Cuba. Do you remember what happened? John F. Kennedy assumed full responsibility, and the director of the CIA, Allen Dulles, was dismissed. Bissell, who was his deputy, also gone. And there were major changes in terms of what happens when security breaks down. The lesson of John F. Kennedy and the Bay of Pigs is one that ought to be learned today. And this administration is suffering, and should suffer, the consequences of what has happened. Not only was it a breach of security, but if you were an ally of the United States, sharing intelligence with the United States, would you have confidence in the people who now lead our intelligence agencies, the men and women who have been involved and are involved in what is going on now, frankly, ought to be dismissed? That's right. Donald Trump ought to admit that he put together a national security team that doesn't function, that doesn't work. And you know what? He'll never do it. He'll stick by his people. And he will insist that nothing wrong was done. Well, I have news for you. Every day, as more and more information comes out, people are going to understand it. Now, I have to make another comment, because when this story first broke, I shifted between CNN and Fox. Those were the two stations I watched for. And on Fox, it was as if nothing had happened. Everything was normal. And indeed, as this story evolved, what did we hear from Fox? Attacks on Democrats. Attacks on the way in which Democrats function. And what have we heard from Republicans? A defense of Donald Trump and the administration. This, my friends, is a crisis moment in the history of America. And I know that we say that repeatedly with Donald Trump. Constantly there are issues evolving. But I must tell you, having been involved in policy and in discussions over decades, I have never seen anything like this. And there should be outrage and there should be concern. Now, what are we waiting for now? For the other shoe to drop. As more and more information comes out, how will the White House respond? And how will Republicans respond? This is something that is so serious, so disturbing, that every American should be up in arms. Let the lessons of the Bay of Pigs be learned. If you make a mistake, you admit it. You take responsibility. You don't cover it up. And if you have aides around you who have not done their job properly, they should be dismissed. Absolutely. We're talking about the national security of the United States of America. And we're talking about the people who are now entrusted with that responsibility. If I sound like I'm being harsh, if this were a Democratic administration, you can be certain the Republicans would be saying just what I'm saying now. It is the hypocrisy in all of this that really bothers me. Well, we'll see how it plays out. But I have to comment on one other thing, and that has to do with Donald Trump's executive order on elections. Evidently, Donald Trump does not understand basic civics. National elections, what he is doing with his executive order, is ridiculous. You all know that we don't have national elections, we have state-by-state elections. Each state controls its own voting procedure. And for Donald Trump, once again, to raise the question of citizenship. You remember when 5 years ago the results came in and he said in California there were 3 million people whose votes were illegal? And of course it wasn't true. Do you remember when he set up a commission to be chaired by Mike Pence to examine all the people who weren't citizens who were voting? Remember what happened to that commission? Nothing. It died. I want to be crystal clear. I don't want there to be any ambiguity here. The president's executive order dealing with elections is not relevant, and it will be challenged in court. And I believe even the conservatives on the court will understand that this has to be repudiated. But the fact that Donald Trump would make such an effort to deal with elections, to rig elections, is to me beyond comprehension. Where is the anger? Where is the distress? Where are the voices among Republicans and Democrats joined together in saying what this is? Well, it's going to go to court. A lot of stuff is going to go to court. And all we can say is that it is our belief that if the American system works, the courts will throw a lot of this out. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which is, of course, our goal. I want to point out you can interact with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn. You can email me, and of course, many of you do. And I also want to make clear that this podcast would not be possible without the wonderful work of Gogo Zoger. And Gogo, maybe we can use you as an analogy. If Gogo had messed up, she wouldn't be the producer of this program. And Gogo, you haven't messed up. You are the producer of this program, and we're glad you are. But can you imagine if this same standard were applied, that I apply to Gogo and the superb job that she does, to what we are now getting from our national intelligence agencies, and indeed from the President of the United States? My goodness, what a contrast. So Gogo, you rock. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague. I'll be back tomorrow, right here, with another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.